All right, so we're going to do a quick down and dirty fire safety for wood shop. And my name is Bob Maurer. I'm from Waynesboro. I'm a professional firefighter with the city of Hagerstown. I've been there since '94, and I've been a volunteer with Waynesboro since 1983. And I've been a EMT or a first responder, floating back and forth between the two since 1988. And not on here, I was also a 911 dispatcher for 15 years here in Franklin County. So tonight we're going to cover basic fire science. We could go a whole week class on nothing but fire science. It's pretty intense, but we're just going to do a quick down and dirty one. We're going to do a shop prevention, and part of that was the dust that Bill covered, chemicals. We're going to go overloading electrical circuits, and then we're going to go over what happens if an emergency does happen. We're going to talk about 911 and what kind of fire extinguishers might be best for your shop. And, I didn't add that. Detectors or alarms. Let's go over that real quick right now. As much dust and chemicals that's in a shop, we don't recommend putting any kind of detectors in the shop itself. If your shop is attached to your house, put it outside the door, but not in the shop itself. It just goes off too much, and the dust interferes with the ionization, little nose sniffer in there, and they just get trashed. It's just a waste of money. So if it's attached to your shop, put it outside the door. So basic fire science. Fire needs three things. It needs heat, it needs oxygen, and it needs fuel. If you take away any one of those things, the fire goes out. We use a lot of water. Water takes the heat away, so the fire goes out. If you see a gasoline tanker wrecked on the highway and you see the firefighters throwing out the foam, well, the foam is putting a layer on the gasoline to take the vapors away, so that's taking away the fuel. So you take away any one of those things and the fire's going to go out. So if you're thinking about that, in your shop, well, like Bill was saying, what if? We're going to do a lot of what ifs here tonight. What if this catches on fire, whether it's a rag that you had chemicals on and you balled it up and you set it in a corner and now that rag's been spontaneously combusted. We're going to go over that later also. Well, what's the best way to put that out? Take away one of those three parts of the triangle, the fire's going to go out. Of course, everybody knows heat rises. The smoke's going to go with the heat. So where are we going to go? We're going to go down, because that's where the cool, fresh air is to get out of our shop. So we always teach the kids, get low and go. So if there's something that ever happens in your shop, make sure you get down where the cool air is, because all the nasty stuff's up there. They added something new. If your clothes catch on fire, what's the big saying?
Drop and roll.
Stop, drop, and roll. They added one. Okay? So we have the stop, we have the drop. They added cover your face, because they found that with the rolling and the flames that were still on the clothes, the respiratory tracts were getting burnt and inhalation hazards. So now it's cover your face. Stop, drop, cover your face, and then roll. And make sure you roll completely over. Because I've splashed all kinds of lacquer thinner and all kinds of stuff on me, and who knows if a spark could come from wherever and catch your clothes on fire. A little bit of housekeeping. This is an amazingly clean shop. I don't know how much woodworking gets done in here, but no, this isn't like my shop. Dust explosions, along with this housekeeping. It's in a home shop. It is virtually impossible to have a dust explosion. there needs to be so much dust in the air that you wouldn't even be able to be in that room. You see these big industrial plants with the flour and some of the woodworking particles. Yeah, they do have a lot. Staten Furniture at work in Hagerstown, when they were in business, wow, did they ever have a lot of dust in that place. I'm surprised that that place hasn't. If you really want some reading to put you asleep, take a look at the NFPA 664, the standard for the prevention of fires and explosions in wood processing and woodworking facilities. Boy, that'll put you to sleep in a hurry. But in there is this paragraph that they tested what it took to actually have a dust explosion. So having that bulk density of 20 pounds per cubic foot, that's a lot of sawdust. There's no way you could have that much sawdust. I don't sand that much in 10 years to have 20 pounds. An assumed concentration of 350 grams per cubic meter. Okay, so that's what, 3 feet by 3 feet. 350 grams of it. And you have to have an 1/8 inch thick layer covering not just the floor, but also the horizontals. Any horizontal, 1/8 of an inch of dust. And that will give you the optimum concentration to have your building blow up. So in a home wood shop, it's pretty much virtually impossible to have a dust explosion. With that being said, it's still best to keep your shop clean. Not only from the fire standpoint, but from the health aspect of breathing that dust, because every time you walk, every time you move something, that blows up those fine, tiny little ones that just sit and float in the air. The ones that sink aren't the problem. It's the ones that just hang in the air that you can see, when the light shines through. They're the ones that really get into your lungs and cause problems. Chemical storage. How many people just have their stuff sitting out on a shelf? Yeah. Put them inside a cupboard with a closed door. Try to keep the vapors inside there. Make sure you do not stack cans. You get two different chemicals, one leaks down into the other. We don't know what's going to happen. They could mix, they could make a third chemical that could eat something else. I am not a hazardous materials technician. That's not something that interests me. I choose not to do it. My hazmat rule of thumb is I back up until I can cover it with my thumb. So I don't want to have anything to do with it. I don't like having a third arm growing out of me. So within that cupboard or closet with a closed door, I know a guy who happens to have an old refrigerator that he uses for storage. So that's a great idea. Just make sure grandkids don't crawl into it. Chemicals on rags. We all use the rags for staining or various different things, wiping up spills, and make sure you spread it out. The best place to do it is outside. Spread it out, let it dry outside. Don't ball it up and throw it in the shop. Linseed oil, and there was another one that I learned the other day. A lacquer, well, that one. But there was another one that surprised me. And I can't remember it off the top of my head. But that one spontaneously combusts too. Balling up the rags, throwing them in the corner, that's not a good idea. Take them out, spread them outside, let them dry out, then bring them back and reuse them, because I always reuse all my rags too. I'm not an electrician. However, overloaded electrical circuits are like the third popular fire that we run in Hagerstown. And that is an overloaded electrical circuit. Through the National Electric Code, it's 1,800 watts maximum per a 15 amp circuit. So on your motor, they should have the watts on it. Okay, this one just goes by amps. So there's 6.1 amps right there on a 15 amp circuit, and if you're running something else, a microwave at the time, you know, you're going to be tripping your breaker pretty quick. One of the, well, I said it was the third biggest cause of fires in Hagerstown is electrical. Lots of people like to use the little lamp cord, brown extension cords, coil them up, and run their refrigerator off of them. Well, that coiling it up just caused a big electromagnet, and it's just a big mess. You see big burn marks in the linoleum. So make sure you use the right gauge wire for the right motor you're running, and don't coil it up, spread it out. If there's an electrician in here that knows more about it than I do, you know, speak up, give us some hints. If it's on fire, I know what to do. 911. If you have any doubt in the back of your mind that you need to call, make sure you call. Because we would much rather come out for nothing than come out too late. And then there's a big mess. So whether it's medical, whether it's fire, whatever it is, if there's any doubt, you know that, well, I better call. Well, you better call. So we don't mind coming out for nothing.
Tell me something. What do they ask you if you call 911? You know, I never had.
Well, that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's my neck. Yep. Whenever you call, they're going to ask you your name. They're going to ask you your phone number, whether it's your cell phone or whether it's your house phone. They're going to ask you for that number. And then they're going to ask you for your address. Any one of those three things, if I have two of them, I can always get the third there at the 911 center. So if you give me a name and a phone number, especially if you're on the landline and it doesn't match the address, I'm going to be asking you a whole bunch of questions. Well, why aren't you at that? Wait, something's not jiving here. What's going on? Is the actual call somewhere else, or you know what's going on? Because yes, as soon as the phone rings, the address, name, address, and whoever's name is on that bill, who pays the bill, phone bill, their address comes up on the screen. So I know already what's going on. So for those of you guys are old enough to not play with phones, however, you might have younger brothers and sisters that as soon as they dial 911, I know exactly who pays the bill there, you know, the address, everything. So whenever you call, they will ask a ton of questions. A ton. However, somebody else is already doing the dispatching. They already sent the ambulance. They already started them. What we're trying to do is prioritize the call, prioritize the injury, and get more information. The more information that we can get from the caller, it helps the first responders, whether it be the police, whether it be the fire or EMS, gives them more information on the way to the call so they can either order more resources or downgrade the resources, put somebody in service. So while you are sitting there being patient with the dispatcher and answering all the questions, the other dispatcher, because there's like 6 of us working there, well, not me anymore, but there's 6 of them working at a time in there. So there's a lot of dispatchers, and everybody gets everything on all the screens. So as they're typing, whoever's typing the information in, everybody at all the other consoles, whether they're working Chambersburg Police, Waynesboro Police, Fire, they can see all that information on there. So they might have an EMS call in Greencastle that the Greencastle Police can read what's on that screen and tell the police that, hey, you know, we're sending an ambulance here for this problem. So please be patient with the dispatcher. Answer all the questions. they are sending somebody, their partner already has them on the way. So, yeah, just please be patient with them.
One thing I do all the time, if I call into 911, this is a non-emergency call. And that way that they know if you have something else, go take it. I can wait.
Right.
So.
And then they'll say, here, please call back on this number.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll give you another number to call in on. Unless if it's going to take a while. If it's real quick, yeah, we'll take care of it on the 911 phone. But if it's a non-emergency, look up a number.
I'm not aware that York has that. I've never been told that anyhow.
Yeah, usually it's in the phone book under Department of Emergency Services or something like that.
If we go to have an outside burn,
Mm-hmm.
we have to call in and
Right.
tell them that we're doing that.
Yeah, we have to do that in Franklin County here
road
too.
Hazard out on the roadway. Okay, I know where it's at, but I'm going to call in because I'm already past it.
Right.
It's dangerous for me to take care of it. Okay, again, it's not an emergency per se. So.
Right. Yeah, sometimes it's quicker just to take it right then and there, but if it takes a while, I'll give you another number here. Give me a call back on this number. And
yeah, I think everybody has always taken the call right away.
yeah, because we only have a limited number of lines that come into the center on 911. It's not like we have 8,000 lines coming in. There's only like 30. And there were some times where all of them are full and people were actually had to wait.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to get into the what if, like Bill was saying. What if there is a fire? Let's talk about fire extinguishers. The fire extinguishers are rated for different kinds of fires. Class A is ordinary combustibles, wood, paper, rags, that kind of stuff, plastics. B is flammable liquids, lacquer thinner, oil, gas, the usual. C is live electrical equipment. Live is the key word here, because if it's not live, it's now a regular Class A fire. Live electrical equipment is like switch gear, transformers, that kind of stuff. In a shop, if it's a live electrical equipment and you can walk over safely and turn off the electric, it's now just a Class A fire. It's not a live electrical fire. So they do make special extinguishers just for live electrical equipment. We don't even carry them on our fire trucks because they're so special, they're so expensive, and we never run into it because we just wait until the power company gets there, shut it off, and then we put it out. And D is flammable metals. So unless you have one of the old Lawn Boy magnesium mower decks and one of the old Home Light chainsaw bodies, yeah, the magnesium stuff. Now, aluminum powder is flammable. It's not combustible. It's flammable. I mean, it'll just burn real fast, but it won't sustain. It won't sustain much flame. So, I think we have 2 Class D fire extinguishers within our department. We have 6 stations. We don't use them. If we have an old shed that's on fire, we just flood it with water and take the heat away from it. All right. So a dry chemical fire extinguisher. There's one there on the floor in the corner by the door.
Joe, grab that, please.
It's good for A, B, and C class fires. There's some powders that are only good for B and C, but not A. So you need to read the label on the extinguisher. This one's good for A, B, and C. However, these need shaken every month. Like this one, you can feel it. It's a big cake. I don't know how old this one is.
I got 2 or 3 years, I think.
2 or 3 years. About once a month, take them, flip them over, shake them to get that powder loosened up. If it sits there long enough and you go to use it, nothing will come out. because it's big cake in there. They make a huge mess. Talk about that fine powder. Wow, that stuff is nasty in your lungs. But if you got to use it, you got to use it. Yeah, if you pass it around, everybody shakes it.
Yeah,
That works by chemical reaction. In that week-long fire science class I mentioned, we get into the sustained chemical reaction. So the firefighters, we actually learn the fire tetrahedron, not the fire triangle. So that actually works on the sustained chemical reaction of the fire and puts the fire out that way. It also works by smothering it by taking the air away. Carbon dioxide fire extinguisher, you know that one by the horn. This one does not have a big horn on it. It has the little nozzle. This one has a gauge to let you know how much air pressure or nitrogen pressure or whatever gas that particular company uses to pressurize it. Carbon dioxide does not have a gauge, but it has the big horn. The only way you can tell a carbon dioxide extinguisher is good is to weigh it. That one you don't have to shake. It's just pressurized gas. It does not make a big powder mess. It works by cooling the fire because when it comes out from its storage pressure, it expands and it cools. Don't touch that metal after you use it though. It's like licking a flagpole. What?
Its main thing is it depletes the oxygen, but that's one thing you got to worry about. Fires only require 14% oxygen. We need 21%. So can't use it in a small space.
So it works by smothering also. Just like blowing out a candle. Takes away the oxygen. Now, when he talked about don't use them in a small space, this room is okay. I mean, you're talking about you have to really flood that room with the carbon dioxide to really take away all the oxygen in the room. If it's that big a problem, you're going to be already outside and you should already have called 911. And pressurized water. It has a limited use. It's only good for Class A fires. It can produce water damage. You're not going to be using all that much, so that's a trade-off, damage from fire or water damage. I'd rather have the water damage. And it works by cooling. If you're trained on it, you can use it for some other fires. However, water battles, especially with the ones with foam in them. So you have to ask yourself, what's best for my shop? What am I going to be using in my shop a lot? If it's a turner shop, a pressurized water might be the best. They're rechargeable. You can recharge them yourself with an air chuck. You don't have to take it to a shop, except for once every, I think it's 5 or 10 years to get it hydrostatically tested. The carbon dioxide one, you do need to take it back to a shop. They're good for more than one use. You can, as long as it's still within the weight limits, you can keep using it. The dry chem, you have to go get it recharged. It's a one-time use and then you send it back. And some of the time, it's cheaper to buy a whole new extinguisher than it is to get it recharged. Some of the like 8-10 pound ones, once you get up that high in weight, then it's worth it. I just had one done for $50. They needed a new O-ring, but just the standard test was $36. Hydrostatic test and get it recertified was $36 plus a part. So for $50, I got another 15-pound extinguisher, good for another 5 or 10 years. I have a pressurized water because I don't use any B liquids and I don't have any live switchgear in my shop, so that's all I have. It's cheap, and it's unlimited use.
And you can put water back in it, did you say?
Yes.
Yeah.
You put water back in it and pump it up to the air with an air chuck. About 90 psi until the gauge reads, and
Where can you get
it's
that
good.
at? Any, like Lowe's?
I don't know if you can buy those at Lowe's, but I know FireX in Hagerstown, Macaulay Court, off of Sweeney Drive. If you go down Burhan's Boulevard by Vasel Boulevard, you make the right at Vasel Boulevard that takes you to the Lowe's and over to the mall. If you keep going straight up over that bridge and then make the right at the concrete plant, if you make a right in there and then make the next right, and it's back in there. Jones Fire Extinguisher in Chambersburg. I don't know if he's still around. Dave Jones, I think his name was. Is he still around? He can get you. He can get them. I don't know how much a brand new one cost.
I just did an auction the other day where they sold a couple of them.
Yeah.
I think Lowe's only sells the ABC fire extinguishers. That's all they got.
Yeah, probably.
Anything else you have to shop around for?
Yeah.
Aim would be one thing. One time I saw somebody shooting at a fire and they were strictly hitting the very top of the flame.
Yep, hit the base. That's a whole nother class. Yeah, aim at the base and sweep. Sweep side to side. Because it's different if you have a pan of oil on fire versus rags and stuff. So that's why it's a whole nother class. It's different technique and that kind of stuff. So I wasn't sure how deep into this.
Good job.
Any questions about fire safety?
How about using PVC tubing in a air piping system in the shop?
Air supply or dust collection?
No, air supply.
Air supply has to be
Compressed air.
has to be the Schedule 80. It has to be the big thick stuff.
I saw one fire in a cabinet shop, small manufacturer, cabinet manufacturing, had a big compressor and a very large air storage tank. And they had piped the whole shop with air with PVC. The motor for the compressor caught fire and melted the PVC tubing, and that whole chamber blew. That literally caused the building to explode with that forced air into the fire. If it had been a metallic tubing, it wouldn't have lost the building. They lost the
Right.
whole works.
Well, that also sounds like maintenance with the machine, with a compressor.
It could have been. There's a cycle. Those big motors cycle an awful lot
Yeah,
in a shop like that.
yeah,
That came as a big surprise to a lot of people, because they thought they were going to be able to get the fire out, but as soon as that PVC failed under high temperature, it was like a big blowtorch.
yeah. Now with the PVC with the dust collection, that's a big no-no because there's no way you can ground that stuff enough to dissipate the static electric charge. So always use the metal. Even, the PVC, it just conducts so much static electricity. Now the black corrugated stuff, that's not made out of PVC. That's made out of something different, and
But
it can dissipate it.
You told us earlier the amount of dust the volume of dust that has to be in there, and you could never get that.
Correct. For a dust explosion within your shop. Correct. With a fire in the dust collection system, yeah, that's possible. Just the static electricity could light, not a dust explosion, just a fire. The static electricity in there could cause a spark to set your collection system on fire. Yeah, that's definitely possible. I've been to a couple of those out at
Showing
Hicksville.
the article.
It's really
Not possible.
We're gonna run out of time.
Okay.
We gotta get back
We're-
on the schedule here.
Okay.
Let's go into the first aid.
Okay.
What all do you want to?
I'll just take a second here. Bob's going to be doing the first aid, so it's Dallas Heaton has a chance to sit down. I just wanted to tell you about my experience when I went online trying to find out what accidents and what injuries happen in a lathe, basically a lathe shop like we're talking here. And it's difficult. These guys both came up with the stuff that I found, but I found so many different conflicting articles. OSHA, for example, they're concentrating on industrial shops. They're not worried about the home shops. So you get different injuries from the OSHA results than you do when people do surveys. But basically what I found out was that the lathe is one of the safer tools in your shop. People do get injured. They get injured bad and sometimes killed, but not with the frequency that you see with some of the other tools in our shops. And many of us have the other tools. Table saw is split out completely. And OSHA splits a table saw into a separate category because of the number of injuries that happens on a table saw. I saw some surveys that were done by different woodworking clubs, and it shouldn't surprise most of us, joiner was towards the top of the list. So table saws, joiners, and those are for the severe accidents. But then you also have how many people get injured and what percentage of people get injured with the tools. The highest percentage of people getting injured, when one article was a belt sander. Not serious injuries, but people kept running their thumbs or their fingers into the belt. So I guess what I took away from all this research was that, we're in as far as woodworking, we're in a fairly safe end of the woodworking, but any tool has the potential to injure you. And with that, we're going to find out what some of the injuries are and how to treat them.
Well, mostly just how to treat them. Just a real quick. I highly recommend people taking the Red Cross basic first aid class. It's a real good class just for general knowledge. That and CPR. They're the two things. So we're going to go into woodshop injuries, lacerations, what to do for a laceration. Make sure you just grab a clean bandage and direct pressure. Just take it, put it on it, wherever. There's a nice little scar. All of us have scars somewhere or another from lacerations and stuff. If you can, put it above your heart. Makes it harder for the heart to pump the blood up. Won't bleed as much. And then head to the hospital by whatever way you choose. I'm not going to say call the ambulance. I'm not going to say drive yourself all the time. I'm not going to, whatever you choose. Get yourself to the hospital if you need stitches. Do not put a tourniquet on it. There's a lot of changes now going on with the damage that a tourniquet does, unless that life is definitely going to be lost if you don't put it on. There's research going on now. In fact, we've taken all our tourniquets off our rigs because of the damage that it does to the limb.
Always a last resort.
Always a last resort. Like I said, this is going to be real quick, down and dirty. Eye injuries, flush it with sterile water. Tap water, well water is not considered sterile. They make quart bottles of sterile water that you can buy at CVS, Walmart, wherever that's cheap. Flush it out. Head to the hospital if it needed, because you scratch your eye, it's going to take a long time for it to heal. If one eye needs bandaged, make sure you bandage both eyes, because the one that's not bandaged is going to be looking around while this one is going to track with it and creating more injury. So to keep both of them still, bandage both eyes. That way you won't be causing more damage. We talked about abrasions. Just wash it with soap and water. It's going to sting, yeah, but just regular soap and water is the best. Wrap it in a clean, sterile bandage. Let it weep. Let it form its own scab. There's been some controversy about whether to use Neosporin, the antibacterial stuff, on just an abrasion. They're saying no, don't use it anymore because of the super bugs that are out there and people getting resistant to the antibacterial stuff. So just wrap it in a clean, sterile bandage and let it scab over on its own, just like we used to do when we were kids. Put the Yep, that'll work fine. If you can find some mercurochrome, I don't know if anybody makes it anymore. Paint it red. You remember we used to do that with our skins knees? Chemical burns. We were talking about chemical storage and all that. Be familiar with what's in your shop and know what to do before the problem happens. There are some chemicals out there that are reactive to water. So if you spill something on you and the first inkling, your first reaction is to go wash it off. Well, that may cause it to get worse because it's reactive to water. So know what's in your shop. Know what to do ahead of time before you spill it. And then if it does get on you, make sure you read the container, follow the directions on the container. Some of them might say put baking soda on it to neutralize it. So follow the directions on the container. Impalement, that might happen. You get some hidden arrow that gets stuck in the drywall behind you and you look at each other and oh my goodness. So impalement, make sure you call 911 first. That is not an option to go to the hospital on your own. Make sure you call, because if that thing's stuck in you and it's pretty long, this part out here is wiggling, well, the part inside's wiggling too, and that's creating more damage, and who knows what damage it's doing inside, no matter where it's stuck, whether it's just in a muscle, you could still hit a vein, an artery, whatever.
Will you grab hold of the circuit or saw and cut it off?
Yeah, you could. Lay it down on the radio alarm saw.
Don't try and pull it out yourself.
Yeah, do not try to pull it out because that's creating more damage on the way back out. That's what the doctor's for. An amputation, with a lathe, it's very unlikely. However, with a table saw, chop saw, radial arm saw, all that stuff, yeah. That's another one. No options. Call 911. This is another one where the direct pressure with a clean bandage, depending on how long it takes the ambulance to get there, is going to be better than the tourniquet. However, depending on where you live and where you are and how long it takes the ambulance to get there, during the 911 call, this kind of call, the operator is not going to let you hang up. He will stay on that line with you and talk to you until the ambulance gets there. So he has a different set of protocols, and he'll be going down through his screen that he might tell you to put a tourniquet on because of the timing. So these cards are updated every 6 months with the data that they find. It's emergency medical dispatch. So for right now, put a sterile bandage on it with direct pressure. That's the end of this quick and dirty first aid.
You cut your finger off, how do you transport the finger?
Put it in your pocket.
The best way to do it is to wrap it in a clean cloth and then put it in a bag. Put that bag in a towel or a washcloth and then put it on ice or a cold pack or something like that. Make sure that the body part is isolated from the cold pack or ice. Don't put it directly on there because that ruins the tissue. So make sure it stays cold. However, make sure it's insulated from whatever coldness that you have. There's some people that they're just too squeamish, they can't pick it up. So, then we have to go get it. However, take it. If you pick it, if you are okay with picking it up, pick it up. Take it with you. Even if you can't wrap it in anything cold, just take it with you. It's about, they might be able to put it back on. Any other questions?